So who is running the federal government? Who is running the executive branch of the government? That's a good question, because it sure as hell isn't President Joe Biden. I don't know if you've seen, the White House is now using Dr. Jill Biden as a mechanism to walk Joe Biden off stages at campaign events now. Did you see this? This is now the new, because they're tired of him he doesn't know where to go. He's just wandering around. So she has to come out and now escort him off the stage at events.
It's actually clever. They're probably like, why didn't we think of this before?
It's clever, but they think we're stupid.
Well, yes.
Like they think we don't get the mechanism here. They think we are stupid.
Yes.
That we don't understand what they're doing here. Of course we know what they're doing with using her for that reason.
They had to start using her because the Easter Bunny didn't work. So they're like, okay, we can't use the Easter Bunny anymore. We'll have to use somebody that,
Right.
Didn't he ignore the Easter Bunny too? Maybe they get like one of the topless trans people to show up on the White House lawn like they did before. So the White House is using Dr. Jill Biden as this mechanism now, and Democrats are now actively scrambling, of course, to find a replacement for the 2024 election, and they're getting very, very desperate. But beyond the most important proof of all that Biden isn't running, the executive branch, actually something that occurred just last week when we learned that Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin suddenly disappeared. Where the hell did Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin go? Not that I really care, but it's the holidays. They just get him out of there. No one in the White House knew where he was, not even the President of the United States. As a reminder, by the way, American taxpayers pay over $800 billion a year to the Pentagon, to the deep state. That is where all of our money goes. Most, if not all of our money goes to this. So we should have full transparency, should we not? For what goes on at the Pentagon? But we don't. They lie to us on a regular basis, of course, and they can't, during their audits, even account for tens of billions of dollars. They can't account for it, but they can't even find their own Secretary of Defense, and they don't tell the White House where he is. The Pentagon press corps was also kept in the dark. No Pentagon reporters were given any information as to the whereabouts of the defense secretary.
Wouldn't it have been easy to just take a sick day? Just call in sick?
Well, if you would have gotten out in front of the story and just said, hey, Secretary of Defense is going in for elective surgery. This is what's about to happen. This would not be a story at all. But instead, 3 days before Christmas, on December 22nd, here's the timeline. Lloyd Austin goes to the hospital for an elective medical procedure, which we still don't know what that was. So that is December 22nd. Was it gender reassignment surgery? Did he
Which we know now the Pentagon does cover based on the February 2023 documents. Yeah.
Exactly.
Could have been.
Was it gender reassignment surgery? Did he add a vagina to his arsenal? The Pentagon budget.
Lolita.
Right. The Pentagon budget covers those procedures now for our troops at taxpayer expense. He's been, I think, quadruple vaccinated and led the charge for mandatory vaccines for our troops. Was it a complication from being filled with Pfizer chemicals? We simply don't know. We don't have any idea because they won't tell us what happened. So let's follow this timeline. So then that was December 22nd. Then he goes home on December 23rd. Now, remember, they still haven't told the White House at this point. His boss doesn't know anything about it. Then Austin starts experiencing severe pain, and he's rushed to the hospital on January 1st. So this timeline unfolds in a very interesting way because then he goes to an intensive care unit at Walter Reed. That's for dangerous, life-threatening care. Again, no one at the Pentagon told their bosses President Biden was going since his first hospitalization on December 22nd. So no one told him about this. No one told them anything about this. This is 11 days. No one's told the White House. You go, you come back, you go again, severe pain, no mention to the White House, no mention to your boss where you are with wars raging around the world. You're concerned about China. You're concerned about Putin. You're concerned about Israel. You're concerned about Hamas. You're concerned about Iran. You're concerned about Houthi rebels in the Red Sea. No mention, nothing. Now, this is where things get even more bizarre because during this timeline, Lloyd Austin didn't turn over control of the Pentagon to anyone else. Not his second in command, Kathleen Hicks, not anyone. Kathleen Hicks was on vacation at the time in Puerto Rico and didn't know anything about it. But during this time, while Austin was in the ICU, the United States military, this is what I find really fascinating, carried out multiple attacks on foreign countries and targets. So during this time, American forces were attacked in Syria and Iraq. During this time, Israeli forces, using American intelligence and American weapons, launched devastating attacks in Gaza, also coordinating attacks in Lebanon against Hezbollah. So who authorized these strikes?
Well, you know, Clayton, when you're a good manager, you just trust your team to keep on with the bombing.
Oh, okay.
You know, you're like, they're well trained now.
But it's not just
I feel very
continuing.
confident in my team.
I would agree with that. It's not just continuing on with this stuff. These are literally new attacks. We're launching airstrikes in Iraq.
Yeah.
Like we're starting. This is a new operation that we're carrying out against Iranian-backed targets.
You're a successful manager when you can outsource yourself.
When you don't even have to be there.
He's like,
yeah.
He's like, I don't want to be seen as a micromanager. So, you know.
Yeah.
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 I'm going to go off and try not to die, but I think that my marching orders will continue to be implemented.
So a day later, Congress then learns about it. Well, I'm sorry. Let me go back here a second. So, who authorized all of this? Who was the person pulling the strings here? Which deep state member was pulling the strings? It just goes to show you that, of course, this all just flows the way it's going to flow from this timeline from December 22nd to December 23rd to January 1st, all the way up. No one knows where Lloyd Austin is. No one's telling anyone at the White House about where this was, what actually happened here. Then on January 4th, finally, the White House is notified. The U.S. carried out military strikes that Lloyd Austin didn't authorize. Who did? His second in command didn't authorize it. Kathleen Hicks was on vacation, so she didn't authorize it. The President of the United States is out to lunch and he's got dementia. So who the hell is running the government? January 4th, the White House finally learns about Austin's incapacitation. And a day later then, Congress finally learns about it and tells the American people about it. So Senator J.D. Vance says Austin should be fired immediately for this dereliction of duty. Listen.
Do you think it's time for Mr. Austin to resign? Biden apparently is not going to fire him. The question is, should Austin resign? Because a lot of this stuff comes from Austin's own office, which was, shall we say, miscalculating.
Look, he absolutely should resign. He should be fired by the President of the United States. And barring that, the Congress has to look into this. There are so many problems here, so many unanswered questions. Did we have a breakdown in our nuclear deterrence? Of course, the Secretary of Defense is a major part of that. We're now, 4 days where we haven't seen the Secretary of Defense. We should actually check in and make sure, God forbid, we don't have a weekend at Bernie's situation with the world's most powerful military. He should resign. This is disgraceful. Again, I've never seen anything like it. But beyond him resigning, Larry, we've got to have a very, very stark set of questions to the Biden administration about who's actually in charge over there. If you lose the Secretary of Defense for days, it suggests that the engine is running, but nobody's behind the wheel. That is the story of the Biden administration at a time of extraordinary chaos for the United States all across the world. It's a big, big problem.
This reminded me of one of my favorite books I've ever read called The President is a Sick Man, and wherein the supposedly virtuous Grover Cleveland, who was supposed to be this incredibly virtuous person who never, ever lies, right, suddenly disappears in 1886, and no one knows where he is. And he has a mysterious, 1893, he has a mysterious jaw surgery on a ship in the ocean. No one knew where he was. And the press and basically the White House was like lying to the American people, and the press was sort of asking about it and sniffing around about it. Turns out he went and had like a cancerous tumor removed for his jaw. Could have killed him. Kept it from the American people. We can't tell about it. And then when a courageous newspaper man goes and actually uncovers the story, he's vilified, has his career ruined, and they stepped all over him and told him that he was, told the world that this newspaper man was a liar. 20 years later, vindicated. They had to come out and actually apologize for it, but it didn't matter because it ruined the guy's life. But he uncovered the truth. So when J.D. Vance says he's never heard about this before, we have precedents. 1893, Grover Cleveland, when this happens. So where does this guy go? Like, what is going on here at the Pentagon? And who is running our federal government? We don't know. And Joe Bianchio penned a piece this morning asking some very important questions. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin must resign, and he says, more questions still. What did the Pentagon press officers know, and when did they know it? Surely they are aware of the protocol for publicly announcing medical procedures for cabinet officials. Who was in the deception? The Secretary of Defense travels with an entire operations center around him at all times. Note takers, communication experts, intelligence analysts. These people all report to the defense officials who report to other defense officials. It's hard to believe the Pentagon's press office was unaware that the big boss was in the hospital. In fact, hiding the Secretary of Defense during a tumultuous work week for the American military surely involved the collusion of multiple senior officials. That's the word I wanted to zero in on, collusion. Who knew? You mean to tell me that the press officers for the Pentagon didn't know?
Someone in the chat says maybe he went AWOL.
Maybe. Yeah. Wouldn't that be funny?
Which is a federal crime.
The Secretary of Defense goes
He's like, I've
AWOL.
had enough. I've seen too much. I can't be a part of this anymore.
Pulls a Chelsea Manning, you know. So that's the that's the word there, collusion, though. What people in the Pentagon knew about this. Senator Tom Cotton also says that the Secretary of Defense needs to resign. Listen.
Is, of course, when you're the Secretary of Defense or his chief of staff or other senior department official, and you know that you're going in for surgery, even if it's minor elective surgery, you have to have contingency plans if something goes wrong. You have to have the basic sound judgment to give a call to the president or the national security advisor and say, hey, I'm going in for this surgery, or you have to have your staff call in and do that. And if your judgment is so poor on such a simple matter, what does it say about your judgment on things like the withdrawal from Afghanistan, or the support for Israel in the Middle East, or efforts to deter China from attacking Taiwan? Someone is going to have to resign over this. And right now, since Lloyd Austin has taken responsibility for it, it would appear that Lloyd Austin is the person who needs to resign, or his chief of staff, or both of them.
Yeah, or his chief of staff, or both of them. So, you know, you have to wonder, though, you just sit back at a larger level and just think about which member, how the deep state is operating inside the federal government right now. You have a dementia patient who's in the White House. He's literally a meat puppet. And I don't say that to be mean, but he's literally being propped up by deep state officials, people who, that are part of the permanent government, who are there and they're just walking him around like a Weekend at Bernie's situation. That's all he is right now. He's not running the government. You think he's the one sitting there signing off? People are coming up to him telling him, Mr. President, here's what you're going to do today. Mm-hmm. Here's what you're going to sign. You're going to sign this, which is $100 billion for Ukraine. Do you think he has any idea what he's doing? No, and this is why Democrats right now are struggling and scrambling to try to find a replacement. Who are they going to put in his place?
I don't know if you remember when Obama's teleprompters went out and how bad his speech was. Could you imagine if Biden's prompters went out, like what that would be like?
Oh my God. We saw a little bit of that when he was in Vietnam, remember? Mm-hmm. But he can't speak extemporaneously.
No. Oh yeah, when he did that booger thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
it was
right.
Disgusting. And he can't speak extemporaneously. He used to be able to. That's the thing. Just go back and look at videos, even from a year ago. You can see the decline. The decline is real.
We have a video in the countdown timer where he's grilling Scott Ritter, and you can see how just on point he was.
Night and day difference.
Right.
Night and day difference. So
no stutter.
Yeah. Who's running this government right now, and who's running our Pentagon? Where is Lloyd Austin? Where is the Secretary of Defense? A lot of questions, and I hope that reporters get answers, and I hope the Pentagon stops stonewalling and provides those answers. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.